If you go on social media, especially Twitter, one common theme that you'll see over and over again that keeps getting tested is trust. And a big question should be, is blockchain the only viable path forward for privacy and censorship resistance? We have an article from Cointelegraph where they go over their thoughts on this. I will share my thoughts and opinions as well at the end. I am not a financial advisor. This is not financial advice. Everything I'm sharing is my own opinion. It's my own research. I highly encourage you to go do your own research. And with that being said, let's go ahead and dive on into the news. Blockchain is the only viable path to privacy and censorship resistance in the 21st century. Decentralized file sharing services that big tech companies can't control are the only way internet users will be able to maintain their freedom in the years ahead. While censorship resistance and privacy are not the same thing, they are closely intertwined. When the government or another entity, such as an advertiser, can track everything you do, they can also sanction you for bad behavior. Instead of working backward to try and cover up seismic cracks in Web 2 with duct tape, it may be time to move full speed ahead on ensuring these same mistakes don't happen in Web 3. By being proactive, the purported internet of the future could actually protect our private information and prevent overzealous or oppressive censorship before these issues become unmanageable. Using crypto to deliver the message. In countries fighting for human rights and civil liberties, suppressing free speech and outward communication complicates the struggle against oppressive regimes. This is where the encryption and transparency of blockchain technology can prove to be useful in protecting sensitive information. Web3-based email extensions such as ShelterZoom's Document GPS and file sharing services such as the Interplanetary File System have the potential to help activists and citizens in human rights hotbeds circumvent censorship and unwarranted surveillance. By placing documents on a ledger, the sender can control all aspects of visibility and permissions while simultaneously having access to a time-stamped log of every action taken with the file. Think of it like DocuSign or Google Docs on steroids. In a regime with stringent practices on surveillance and censorship, it's easy to see how these blockchain-based tools are invaluable. But these kinds of solutions also use blockchain to address crypto's censorship blind spots. It's a common misconception that crypto is inherently private when the opposite is actually true, as transactions are stored on an open and transparent distributed ledger. This is why they are traceable in an even more effective fashion than traditional financial transactions. This lesson was learned the hard way by the truck convoy blockade in Canada, which received donations in Bitcoin, which were easily traced and sanctioned. In the words of Michael Groninger, CEO of blockchain data firm Chainalysis, crypto is far more transparent than traditional finance. We followed the funds. So how did crypto earn a reputation as censorship resistant? Part of the answer lies in decentralized ledger control, making it extremely difficult to take over and immutable once a transaction is recorded in the ledger. One network working to offer complete anonymity is Tomi, a developer of Web3-based decentralized solutions and assisted computing hardware. Led by 8 anonymous senior crypto veterans working with 72 developers, Tomi is building TomiNet to empower the free flow of information between journalists, activists, and generally law-abiding people without government or corporate interference. While TomiNet has similar anonymity functions to the dark web, the network is governed by Tomi's community through a decentralized autonomous organization, or a DAO, to prevent unsavory or pernicious activities. The idea behind DAO governance is simple: keep governments and corporations out, but still offer a mechanism for striking down violence. The need for decentralization is more than theoretical. Another notable example of gatekeeping in big tech can be seen in the controversial right-wing social network Parler getting kicked off cloud-based web hosting services such as Amazon Web Services. Cloud technology is hailed as a truly beneficial technology in internet infrastructure. But the issue is that there are a handful of cloud companies that provide virtually all essential infrastructure, empowering them to act as gatekeepers. Whether you agree with the politics of Parler being banned, the event illustrates how a company is effectively blocked from operating on the internet because a cloud service wouldn't serve them. Decentralized web hosting could step in as a much-needed solution. Companies like Akash and Flux offer a wide range of cloud services imperative for the internet age, but by leveraging decentralization, they remove the cloud service's ability to exert control over users. The examples of governments and private entities with too much power stifling speech and communications are growing by the day. Web3 needs to step up to the plate, but in a more forceful and demonstrative way than it has before. Censorship resistance and privacy live in a symbiotic relationship, and neither means anything without the other. The crypto world needs to remember this if it is to fulfill the space's tall order of promises. Maintaining privacy in this day and age is nearly impossible. From data theft incidents to governments tracking citizens, every person is susceptible to unwanted exposure. TikTok recently updated its privacy policy for the European Economic Area to confirm that personnel, including China-based employees, can access user data. Meanwhile, the Iranian regime continues to crack down on protesters, leaving the citizens afraid to speak out against the leadership. All right, so let's go ahead and share my thoughts on this. The first part, privacy. Well, if it's shared out on the internet, I don't think it's really that private anymore. That's one way to look at something. But on the other hand, when you're talking about with blockchain technology, there are levels of encryption that adds more security behind these things. And if you're dealing with stuff that has to do with the internet in general, what other avenues are people dealing with and handling the transmission of some of this data already? It's things like email, which could be quite easily compromised. With it existing on a public ledger, obviously that does bring a large degree of full transparency to the world. So the privacy element there also kind of comes into play as being very questionable. So blockchain technology from a privacy-based standpoint, I think that there would be better alternatives, i.e., not exactly having your stuff existing in a digital spectrum to begin with, but I digress. So censorship resistance. Yes, I think that blockchain technology would allow for this to come more into fruition. Whether or not that is a good thing, I think is on a case-by-case basis. Because, for example, on one hand, you might think that it's good that everyone has a voice. But if one voice is predominantly pushing disinformation, and that manipulates the majority into believing this disinformation, do you really want people to believe the disinformation? So having things being fact-checked and scrutinized over and providing forms of evidence in all of these cases, I feel is where that you really help make sure that things move in the right direction. So what's an example of something like this? Hopefully everyone that watches my channel would agree that the Earth is round. It's a globe, right? It's a spheroid. Or to be more specific, I think it's called an oblique spheroid, something along those lines. But the point is, it is not flat. And if you have a predominant group where they're like, well, freedom of speech, and they just start pushing the idea that the Earth is flat, it's not flat. Imagine how that would affect our whole standard of living, travel, interactions, everything, if all of a sudden that became the norm. So while it is important to have free speech, I think it's also important to make note of where it is that you're doing the free speech and going across and looking over what the First Amendment is for the United States at the very least. That is to protect from government interference. And that's something that they were actually really highlighting inside of this article here. So to use blockchain technology to avoid having that censorship, it totally makes sense. So there is a path where people, if they want to say that the Earth is flat, they could go and do it and not have them be shut down, whether it be because of the social media platform or the cloud services or whatever, right? You have that right. And is it important that we have places where people can be able to go and share their thoughts and opinions freely without government interference? If you're based in America, yes, because that's what the First Amendment is all about. But the thing is, many people have a misconception where they think that the right to free speech also encompasses over in corporations and private businesses. Like, you wouldn't go into a restaurant and say, hey, your food sucks, I'm protesting your food, and expect that the restaurant can't tell you to leave. They could tell you to leave, right? But what can you do? You can go outside of the restaurant. That's public space. And you can say there, this food sucks, I don't like it. Like, you have that right to do those kinds of things as an American. That's at least based in the United States. So again, there's places where it makes sense, and there's places where it doesn't. And if you use blockchain technology, it makes sense, but there is inherently a degree of risk in not having any form of checks and balances on this. That's the risk that comes with it, right? And there has to be risk and gains in everything that we're talking about here. Even on the other side, right? If you disagree with me and you don't like the idea that social media, the whole privacy because of them being a corporation, like, okay, but you got to understand, right? There are pros and there are cons to it. That's what I really want to stress for that, as well as for the blockchain technology side. But regardless, going back over here for blockchain, is it the only viable path forward? I would say for censorship resistance, it probably is. I think that for that one, I'm not leaning so much for the privacy element, but for the censorship resistance, I think that blockchain technology very well could be the most viable path forward of what we have available tech-wise for the 21st century. What do you guys think? Let us know what you guys think down in the comments below. Again, I am not a financial advisor. This is not financial advice. Please go do your own research. And lastly, thank you guys. If you want to go check this out, I do have a referral link down in the description. This is for Webull. You could get up to 12 free stocks. I use Webull myself. You open up an account, get 2 free fractional shares, deposit any amount. You get 4 to 10 free fractional shares. They're $3, $4, that kind of a range. They could go up to $300 or $3,000 if you're lucky, and you could trade stocks and crypto. I use Webull. Been using it for a good amount of time now. Link is down in the description. Again, I'm not a financial advisor. Please go do your own research. Thank you so much to my Patreon supporters. Double shout out thank you to WeLoveSafeman.com, Victor Vegas, Safeman Oz for being higher level patrons. Also, thank you to my YouTube members for your guys' support. And if you're new to the channel, don't forget to hit subscribe, hit the thumbs up, like button. God bless, and we will see you in the next episode.